They called him fragile. They said he was too skinny, too slow, too weak to play professional soccer. Every door slammed in his face. And today, he's the man no one wants to face on the field. This is the story of the boy who went from being invisible to becoming one of the best players in the world. Let's begin. Everyone knows the Raphinha who shines at Camp Nou, the one who scores in the Champions League, the one who challenges defenders and silences entire stadiums. But almost no one knows the child who started it all. He was born in Porto Alegre, in southern Brazil, but not in the touristic or modern part. Raphinha grew up in Restinga, a neighborhood hit by poverty, drugs, and abandonment. A place where football dreams die before they're even born. The streets weren't paved. Dust rose with every step. The fields were just cracked dirt lots. Some days, the balls were empty bottles. Other days, the sound of gunshots cut through the shouts of goal. That was his childhood. Since he was little, he played barefoot, with wounded feet and scraped knees. Not for fun. He played because he had no other choice. Because in his neighborhood, football wasn't a game. It was a way to survive. While other kids dreamed of being famous, Raphinha just wanted to get into an academy, earn a little money, and help his family avoid going hungry. He never asked for luxuries. Just an opportunity. But even that was denied to him again and again. At the age when most kids think about video games or parties, Raphinha was already knocking on doors, and all of them were closing in his face. He tried everything. Trials at academies, scouts, local clubs, always with the same response. You're too skinny. You can't handle contact. You don't have the physique for professional soccer. And you know what hurt the most? It wasn't the rejection. It was seeing how others, with less talent, were accepted. Because they had the body, the last name, or the connections. And him, he only had hunger and talent. Each no pushed him a little farther away from football. His friends, one by one, quit the sport. Some fell into drugs. Others ended up in neighborhood gangs. Raphinha was this close to following that same path. But then came Futebol de Barça, a parallel world, invisible to big clubs, but where many broken dreams find a second life. There were no official jerseys, no referees, no coaches, no rules, just a patch of dry dirt, makeshift goals, and 11 versus 11, kill or be killed. Young guys and adults played there, sometimes with a gun tucked beside their shorts, sometimes watched by drug dealers sitting on concrete stands. The air was heavy, the tension constant, and the ball was the only thing that didn't lie. In that brutal chaos, Raphinha learned what no training program teaches: to survive, to anticipate, to move before the hit, to play with hunger, to fight for every ball as if it were the last. It wasn't football. It was life or death. And there, in the middle of the dust, the heat, the shouting, and the distant gunshots, he began to shine, not because he looked for it, but because his talent was too real to hide. In the middle of all that chaos, when there wasn't much hope left, someone finally saw him. That man was Deco, a legend of Barcelona and Chelsea, a man who knew the streets, and who could recognize real talent through all the noise. When he watched him play on a forgotten field in Brazil, he didn't care that he was skinny or unknown. A few minutes were enough for him to know. That kid had something special. He signed him to his agency, T20 Sports. And it didn't take long for him to get his first real opportunity. Vitória Guimarães, Portugal. Europe. The dream. But getting there is one thing. Surviving is another. Raphinha landed in a new country, without speaking the language, without family, without friends. In a team where no one knew him, he started with the under-20 squad. And just when he was starting to adapt, an injury sidelined him for weeks. When he returned, no one was waiting. The coach had erased him from the plans. He wasn't even on the bench. He trained alone, in silence, on an empty field, under the rain, with no one watching. And there came the abyss. One night, alone in his room, he picked up the phone. He called his mother. His voice was shaking. Tears barely let him speak. "I can't do this anymore. I want to come back. I can't take it." But his mother, that woman who fought her entire life, who worked endless shifts to keep her family afloat, didn't give him the comfort he expected. She gave him the truth. "You want to quit? Perfect. Come back. But if you come back, get ready to work in a barbershop, a supermarket, or a warehouse. Because here, there's no room for those who give up." That sentence hit him harder than any kick on the field. It was a blow to his pride, but also a spark, an alarm, a call to his soul. The next day, he went back to the field to train. No promises, no guaranteed minutes, just one fixed idea. "I didn't come all the way here to quit." And little by little, without cameras, without spotlights, without headlines, Raphinha began to rise again. What came after that call with his mother wasn't magic. It wasn't a miracle. It was work. Quiet, invisible work. Those training sessions where no one applauds. Those days where you just keep going, because quitting is no longer an option. Raphinha didn't just get back to his rhythm. He came back better, stronger, faster, more determined. In the 2017-2018 season with Vitória Guimarães, he exploded. 18 goals in 43 matches. Electric plays, long-range shots, impossible assists. He was named the team's breakout player. For the first time, Europe raised an eyebrow, and the name Raphinha started echoing through the big halls. In 2018, Sporting Lisbon took a chance on him. The same club that developed Cristiano Ronaldo, Figo, and Nani. But not everything was easy. Injuries, fierce competition, coaching changes. He finished the season with just 4 goals and 4 assists. For some, disappointment. For him, learning. Despite that, he helped win 2 titles, the Taça da Liga and the Taça de Portugal. He even scored in the penalty shootout that decided the final. Because if he knew one thing, it was how to show up when it mattered most. In 2019, Rennes in France paid a record fee for him, 21 million euros. And that's where everything changed. French football is physical, fast, demanding, but he fit in from day one. 8 goals, 7 assists. And more importantly, he helped the club qualify for the Champions League for the first time in its history. In his final match, he left an unforgettable farewell. A goal, an assist, and a standing ovation that echoed through the entire stadium. He was no longer a promise. He was the real deal. And then, the most unexpected call came. The Premier League. In October 2020, Leeds United, newly promoted after 16 years outside the top division, bet £17 million on him. For many, a minor signing. For Bielsa, a key piece. What happened next was special. Leeds United had returned to the Premier League after 16 years of hell in the second division. And among the new signings, there was a name few people knew. Raphinha. He didn't arrive with cameras flashing. He wasn't on the front pages of newspapers. He was simply a Brazilian player from Rennes. Many fans doubted. Another signing who disappears? They wondered. But Marcelo Bielsa, a coach obsessed with details, knew exactly what he was doing. Raphinha wasn't just another signing. He was the secret weapon his system needed. In his first season, he was already impossible to ignore. 6 goals, 9 assists. In a league where defenders give you nothing. But beyond the numbers, it was his character that set him apart. He threw himself to the ground to win balls back. He yelled, ran, pressed. He played with a mix of Brazilian joy and English fury. In every play, he left his soul on the field. Leeds wasn't a big club. but it played like one. And at the heart of that team was him, the kid who arrived quietly and now made the stands tremble. In his second season, Raphinha became the absolute leader. 11 goals, brilliant plays, and, most importantly, he showed up when the club needed him most. Last match of the season, Leeds on the brink of relegation. A penalty, a stadium in silence, the entire weight of the club on his shoulders. He stood in front of the ball, breathed, and sent it to the back of the net. Goal. Salvation. Legend. That day, Raphinha didn't just save Leeds. He earned the respect of the entire Premier League. The big clubs started looking at him differently. He was no longer the kid from Rennes. He was now the Brazilian who plays like a lion. In the summer of 2022, Raphinha received the call he had dreamed of his entire life. Football Club Barcelona wanted him. It wasn't just an offer. It was personal. It was Ronaldinho's club, Neymar's club, Messi's club, the club he watched on TV when he played barefoot in the streets of Porto Alegre. And even though Chelsea and Arsenal offered more money, Raphinha didn't hesitate. He wanted to be part of Barça. The transfer was completed for 60 million euros. Expectations were sky high, but the reality was something else. Barcelona was in the middle of a financial crisis, problems registering players, internal doubts, media pressure. Raphinha didn't even have a fixed jersey number when he arrived, and on the field, the obstacles appeared quickly. Xavi Hernandez, the coach, used him glued to the right wing. His only job: stretch the field and take on defenders in one-on-one duels. But that wasn't Raphinha. His football was something different. Movement into space, diagonals, high press, surprises on the inside. Trapped in a system that suffocated him, the limited minutes began. 60-minute substitutions. Criticism. He delivers, but doesn't shine. He's not essential. Some fans started doubting. The media began talking about a possible sale. And then, another blow arrived. Lamine Yamal, the 16-year-old prodigy dazzling the world. Xavi began prioritizing the new jewel. Raphinha was pushed to the left wing, a position where he never felt comfortable. In an honest interview, Raphinha revealed what he had been carrying for a long time. Sometimes I feel like I do everything right, and they still take me off. Other times, I force too much, and nothing works. The Barça dream was becoming a silent nightmare. But Raphinha is not someone who gives up. He had proven that before. He would prove it again. Just when everything seemed stuck. When the rumors of a sale were growing louder. When some had already labeled him a failed signing. Barcelona changed direction. In the summer of 2024, the club announced its new coach, Hansi Flick, the man who made history with Bayern Munich, winning the sextuple. And his arrival changed everything. For the fans, Flick represented a new era. For Raphinha, it was a second chance. From the very first training session, Flick saw what others hadn't known how to use. A player of energy, pressure, and mobility. He no longer forced him to stay glued to the wing. He didn't limit him to individual duels. He gave him total freedom. To move, to attack spaces, to press, to connect with the midfielders, to be himself, and the impact was immediate. In the first 16 matches of the season, 12 goals, 10 assists, the absolute leader of Barca's attack. But it wasn't just that. He was the soul of the team. He no longer played with the anxiety of being substituted. He no longer forced every play. He played with control, confidence, maturity. His dribbles were fewer, but more effective. His touches were surgical, and his influence on the game was everywhere. He wasn't just the same electric Raphinha as always. He was an evolved version, a leader, a reference point. The critics who once called him a useful player ran out of arguments. The fans who once doubted now chanted his name. And Flick made it clear at a press conference: when you let players be themselves, football flows. The kid who arrived without a fixed jersey number was now the engine of Barcelona. If there was one place where Raphinha had to shine, it wasn't in an interview. It wasn't in training sessions. It was in the matches that define legacies, the ones that separate the good from the immortal. And when that moment came, he didn't fail. But let's rewind a bit. They wanted him out. The badge weighed heavily. The jersey burned. And the silence in the locker room said it all. Raphinha was one of the most criticized players. After a season to forget, Real Madrid had humiliated Barça in every Clásico of 2023-2024. 4-1 in the Supercopa, 3-2 at the Bernabeu, 2-1 at Montjuic. And in all those matches, he was singled out. He wasn't impactful. He didn't show up. Between injuries and a system that suffocated him, his football seemed to have evaporated. The press was relentless. The fans, unforgiving. And he, as always, chose to stay silent and work. What no one expected was that the player who seemed on the verge of being sold was about to be reborn with enough strength to dominate Spanish and European football. With the arrival of Hansi Flick, everything changed. Freedom, confidence, identity. Raphinha was no longer a player receiving cold instructions. He was the offensive engine of the new Barça. He scored in his first 3 league matches, then a hat-trick against Valladolid, and then came the match that changed everything. El Clásico, Barcelona versus Real Madrid. It was in October 2024, and it took place at the Santiago Bernabeu, the most watched match in world football, a stage where stars are born or extinguished. Madrid arrived thirsty for blood, but that day, Barça steamrolled them. A 4-0 thrashing. Raphinha scored the 4th with a perfect chip over Lunin. It wasn't a random play. It was the confirmation of his new role, the man of the Clásicos. Before the match, the cameras were focused on other names, but Raphinha stepped onto the pitch with fire in his eyes, and from the first minute, he controlled the game. Goal, assist, constant high pressing, key recoveries, movements that completely disorganized Madrid's defense. He was a nightmare for the Blancos. He didn't just play, he dominated. When the referee blew the final whistle, the Camp Nou erupted. Raphinha was the silent hero, the unquestioned protagonist. That night, for the first time since arriving at the club, his name was on the front pages. Commentators couldn't stop praising him, and the fans celebrated him like a champion. In the Supercopa final, he punished Madrid again with 2 more goals. An unforgettable 5-2. Mbappé scored early for Madrid, but it meant nothing. And in the Copa del Rey final, even though he didn't score or assist, he was crucial in the comeback that ended with Koundé's last-minute winner. Barça lifted their 2nd title of the year. And once again, Raphinha was at the center of everything. Barcelona became champions of everything in Spain. Supercopa, Copa del Rey, La Liga with 88 points. And Raphinha was vital in every step. In his season, he had 18 goals in La Liga, 13 goals in the Champions League, 14 assists, 2 hat-tricks, 2 MVP awards in the Champions League, captain in 7 official matches. The Champions League was the match of his life. But if El Clásico was a statement, what he did in the Champions League was his coronation. Opponent, Bayern Munich, a club that had humiliated Barcelona in the past, a scar that still burned. Raphinha delivered a masterclass. Hat-trick. Each goal different. One from pure speed, another from intelligence and movement. The last, a cold, perfect finish. And on his arm, the captain's armband. It wasn't marketing. It wasn't an empty gesture. It was recognition of a real leader. That performance wasn't just a personal triumph. It was a symbol of the journey, of the sacrifice, of everything he had endured to get there. The kid who trained alone, who went to sleep hungry, who was too skinny for football, was now captain of Barça and had just scored a hat-trick on the biggest night of the year. Those goals weren't just numbers, they were answers. To those who doubted, to those who wanted to sell him, to those who pushed him to the left wing as a discard. That night, Raphinha wrote his name in the history of European football. In 2021-2022, Vinicius Jr. had his best year. 22 goals, 20 assists, Champions League included. But in 2024-2025, Raphinha surpassed all those numbers. 34 goals, 24 assists, 57 official matches, titles, La Liga, Copa del Rey, Supercopa, key performances in decisive matches, and even more. Compared to Messi's 2011-2012 season, his deadliest in the Champions League, Raphinha wasn't far off. 13 goals, 8 assists, direct involvement in 22 goals in just 14 matches. He's no longer the kid who delivers but doesn't shine. He's a captain. He's a scorer. He's a symbol. And that's why he's now in the conversation among the most decisive wingers on the planet. Not because of marketing, not because of his name, because of what he has done on the field. Today, people talk about Raphinha for the Ballon d'Or, but that is not the most important thing. What matters is that his story proves something very clear. You don't need others to believe in you to begin. You need to believe in yourself, even when no one else does. From Porto Alegre to the very top of world football, Raphinha wasn't chosen by destiny. He chose not to give up. And because of that, he has already won. If this story inspired you, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Because here, we don't just talk about football. We talk about people who refuse to disappear. Stories that prove that dreams are built through effort.